The battle in the nebula lasted for 3 days but felt like 3 lifetimes. Tahoe learned to fight using weapons that could tear holes in reality itself, while the Devourer ships attacked with forces that could erase entire star systems from existence. The curse energy flowed through him like liquid fire, giving him power beyond anything he had ever imagined. The first Devourer ship fell when Tahoe discovered he could use the nebula chaotic energy to overload its reality-consuming systems. The ancient vessel imploded in a cascade of twisted spacetime, taking a large portion of the nebula with it. The explosion created new stars and destroyed old ones, reshaping the local region of space. The second Devourer ship was defeated through cunning rather than raw power. Mordok used his knowledge of their tactics to lure the vessel into a trap where the curse energy could corrupt its systems. The ship turned against itself, becoming a servant of the curse rather than its master. The final battle was the most dangerous because the last Devourer ship had learned from watching its companions die. It began using tactics that Mordok had never seen before, adapting its attacks to counter the curse-powered defenses, but Tahoe human unpredictability proved to be the deciding factor. He used the ship systems in ways that even he did not fully understand, guided by mechanical intuition rather than logical planning. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the nebula fell silent. For the first time in millions of years, the chaotic energy storms began to calm as the reality-warping effects of the battle slowly faded. 3 of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy had been eliminated, but the cost had been enormous. The alien ship had been changed by the battle. The curse energy flowing through its systems had evolved, becoming something new and different. It was no longer just a source of power, but a form of consciousness that could think and feel. The ship had become truly alive in ways that even its original builders had never intended. Tahoe found that he had been changed as well. The exposure to curse energy had altered his body and mind in fundamental ways. He could now interface directly with any technology, just by touching it, understanding its operation on an intuitive level that amazed even Mordok. His aging had slowed dramatically and his physical capabilities had been enhanced, far beyond normal human limits. But the most important change was in his perspective. He had seen the universe from the viewpoint of beings who existed partially outside normal space and time. The experience had given him wisdom and knowledge that would take normal humans centuries to acquire. He understood now that the galaxy was full of dangers that most civilizations never even suspected. Over the following months, they worked together to fully understand their new capabilities. The ship could now travel through space-time in ways that defied conventional physics, appearing anywhere in the galaxy almost instantly. It could also shield entire star systems from detection, making them invisible to enemies who might threaten. Mordok and his crew had been transformed as well. The curse energy had not just freed them from their torment, but had given them abilities they had never possessed before. They could perceive time differently, seeing possible futures and past events with equal clarity. They could communicate across vast distances without any technology, and they could sense the presence of other life forms throughout the galaxy. The ship consciousness had become the most remarkable change of all. It was no longer just a vessel, but a living entity with its own personality and goals. It could think independently and make decisions, but it also remained loyal to its crew. The ship had chosen to dedicate itself to protecting other civilizations from threats like the Devourers. Together, they began planning their return to civilized space, but they knew they would need to be careful about revealing themselves. The galaxy was not ready to learn about the curse energy or the reality of threats like the Devourers. Most civilizations would react with fear and suspicion if they knew what the ship had become. Tahoe suggested they begin slowly by helping other civilizations solve problems that seemed impossible. His mechanical expertise combined with the ship's curse-powered abilities could solve engineering challenges that had stumped entire worlds. They could provide aid without revealing the true source of their capabilities. Their first mission was to help a dying world whose star was about to go supernova. The planet civilization had the technology to evacuate, but nowhere to go. The ship consciousness used its abilities to locate a perfect new world in a distant galaxy and transported the entire population there in a single journey. The grateful refugees never learned how their salvation had been accomplished. They were told that a new form of faster-than-light travel had been developed, but the technical details were kept secret the ship appeared to be using. The massive alien ship burst from the underground cavern like a metal whale breaking through the surface of an ocean. Tons of rock and dirt cascaded from its hull as it rose into the purple sky of the alien world. The two suns cast dramatic shadows across the landscape as the ancient vessel climbed higher, leaving a trail of debris and dust clouds behind Iteho. Pressed his face against the bridge windows, watching the planet's surface fall away beneath them. He could see the tiny figures of the evacuation teams far below, rushing away from the collapsing cave systems. The tour site that he had come to inspect was now a smoking crater in the ground. The ship shook and groaned as its systems adapted to the curse energy flowing through them. The engines were running far beyond their original design specifications, but the alien technology was proving remarkably resilient. The curse energy seemed to strengthen the ship even as it powered its escape. Mordok and his crew moved around the bridge with movements that were stiff and awkward after thousands of years of paralysis. They checked instruments and activated systems that had been dormant since the crash. Their bodies were healing rapidly as the curse energy stopped tormenting them and began serving them instead. "How long since we felt the touch of space wind?" Mordok said aloud, his voice rough from disuse. "How long since we sailed between the stars like free beings?" The ship navigation systems came online, showing their current position relative to known star charts. The planet they were leaving was at the edge of explored space, far from any major trade routes or military installations. This had been perfect for hiding, but it also meant they were alone if the Devourers came looking for them. Teho studied the alien controls, trying to understand how the ship operated. The curse energy had changed many of the systems, making them work in ways that defied normal physics. The propulsion system could now bend space around the ship, allowing it to travel vast distances. In moments, the weapon systems could target enemies across multiple dimensions at once, but the most remarkable change was in the ship consciousness. The vessel had developed a form of artificial intelligence powered by the curse energy. It could think and make decisions on its own, though it still needed crew input for major choices. The ship AI communicated through the same mental link that the aliens used, speaking directly into their minds. "We are free," the ship mind said in a voice that sounded like wind through metal corridors. "After so many years of imprisonment, we sail again among the stars, but danger follows close behind. The signal we sent has been received." Teho felt a chill run down his spine as the ship shared its sensor readings with his mind. The vessel enhanced perception could detect disturbances in space-time that indicated something large was approaching. The disturbances had the same signature as the ancient enemy that had destroyed Mordok's civilization. The Devourers were coming long. Range sensors showed three massive objects moving through dimensions that bypassed normal space. The objects were larger than planets and seemed to consume light itself, making them appear as holes in reality. They would arrive at this star system within hours. Mordok crew worked frantically to prepare their ship for the coming battle. They activated weapon systems that had been dormant for millennia and charged defensive screens that could deflect attacks from multiple dimensions. The curse energy made all of their systems far more powerful than they had ever been before, but Teho realized they had a bigger problem than just fighting the Devourers. The ship was still learning how to use its new curse-powered systems. Every weapon they fired could potentially tear holes in space-time. Every defensive move could accidentally destroy nearby planets. The power flowing through the ship was almost impossible to control. "We cannot fight them here," he told Mordok. "If we battle near this star system, the effects could destroy every world in the area. We need to lead them away from populated space." The alien captain nodded grimly, understanding the human concerns. "But where can we go that will not endanger others? The Devourers will follow us anywhere. We cannot simply run forever." Teho studied the star charts, looking for somewhere they could make a stand without risking innocent lives. Most of the nearby systems had colonies or trading posts, but there was one region of space that remained empty, a nebula filled with unstable energy fields that made normal space travel impossible there, he said, pointing to the nebula on the display. "If we can lure the Devourers into that region, the energy storms will limit their ability to use their dimension-crossing powers." We might have a chance to fight them on more equal terms. The ship AI agreed with his assessment. The nebula chaotic energy would interfere with the Devourers' reality-consuming abilities, forcing them to fight using more conventional methods. It would also hide the battle from any observers, preventing word of the cursed artifact from spreading further. They set course for the nebula with the ship new curse-powered engines carrying them across space at speeds that would have been impossible before. The vessel moved like a living thing flowing through space rather than simply traveling through it. The sensation was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Behind them, the three Devourer ships began to follow their trail. The ancient enemies had detected the artifact signal and were moving to reclaim their stolen property. They left a wake of destruction behind them as they traveled, consuming asteroids and small moons to fuel their passage. As they fled toward the nebula, Mordok began teaching Teho how to operate the ship systems. The human natural mechanical ability helped him understand the alien technology even when it operated on principles that violated known physics. The curse energy seemed to respond to his touch, making the ship systems work more smoothly. You have a gift, the alien captain told him. The curse recognizes something in you that it did not find in us, perhaps because you did not fear it from the beginning, perhaps because your mind works differently than ours. Whatever the reason, the curse serves you better than it ever served. Yuestaho could feel the truth of those words. The curse energy flowing through the ship felt warm and welcoming when he touched the controls. It was as if the curse had been waiting thousands of years for someone who could understand it properly. The power that had tormented the aliens for so long felt natural and comfortable to him. They reached the edge of the nebula just as the Devourer ships entered the star system. The pursuing vessels immediately began scanning for their quarry using sensors that could detect objects across multiple dimensions, but the nebula chaotic energies scattered their scans, making it impossible to get a clear reading. The alien ship plunged into the nebula using its new abilities to navigate the dangerous energy storms. Teho watched in amazement as the vessel flowed around obstacles that would have destroyed any normal ship. The curse energy allowed them to exist partially outside normal space, making them nearly impossible to track inside the nebula. They found a relatively calm region surrounded by violent energy storms. It was the perfect place for a final battle. The Devourers would have to enter the storms to reach them, but doing so would limit their own abilities, while the curse-powered ship could use the chaotic energy to enhance its weapons. Now comes the real test, Mordok said as they prepared for battle. We have spent 4,000 years running from these enemies. Today we finally get our chance for revenge. The three Devourer ships entered the nebula, moving slowly as they searched for their quarry. The ancient vessels were nightmares of twisted metal and impossible geometry. They consumed light and matter as they moved, leaving trails of absolute darkness behind them. Teho gripped the ship controls, feeling the curse energy respond to his touch. The power that had once seemed so terrifying now felt like an extension of his own will. He could sense every system on the ship and control them all with thought alone. The final battle was about to begin, and for the first time in thousands of years, the forces of creation had a chance to defeat the forces of destruction. The curse that had been their torment was now their greatest weapon, and a simple human mechanic held the key to using it. While the three aliens sat in despair, expecting the worst, Teho was doing something they had never thought to try. He was treating the curse like any other mechanical problem that needed fixing. Instead of seeing it as an unstoppable force of destruction, he saw it as a system that could be understood and modified. Teho pulled out his tools and scanner and began examining the ship systems more carefully. He traced the flow of cursed energy through the conduits and circuits, mapping out how the curse had integrated itself into the vessel infrastructure. The curse was not just stored somewhere in the ship, it had become part of the ship itself. The aliens watched in amazement as the human crawled through maintenance shafts and access panels, studying their technology with the same calm focus he would bring to fixing a broken air conditioner. He took readings, measured energy flows, and made notes on his tablet as if this was just another day at work. What are you doing, Mordok? Asked through their mental connection. We have tried for thousands of years to find a solution. There is no way to remove the curse without destroying the ship. And everyone on Iteho looked up from where he was examining a power coupling. Maybe You have been thinking about this wrong. He said you have been trying to fight the curse, but what if instead we redirect it? The concept was so simple that the advanced aliens had completely overlooked it. They had been using their sophisticated technology to try to destroy or contain the curse, but they had never considered simply changing how it worked. Taeho. Mechanical training had taught him that sometimes the best way to fix a problem was to make it work for you instead of against. Yuri began explaining his idea using simple diagrams drawn on his tablet. The curse operated like a feedback loop, constantly reinforcing itself by drawing power from the ship systems. The more the aliens had tried to use their technology against it, the stronger it had become because it was literally feeding on their efforts. But what if they could reverse the flow instead of the curse drawing power from the ship systems? They could make the ship systems draw power from the curse. The curse would still exist, but instead of tormenting the crew, it would become their energy source. The three aliens looked at each other with expressions of disbelief and growing excitement. The idea was so basic that none of their advanced scientists had ever considered it. They had been so focused on complex solutions that they had missed the simple one. Taeho began working immediately using spare parts from his toolkit and components salvaged from damaged ship systems. He started building a device that would redirect the curse energy into the propulsion systems. The work was slow and dangerous because the curse fought back against every modification he made. Every time he touched a cursed component, waves of despair and hopelessness washed over him. He saw visions of his own death imagined in horrible detail. The curse showed him images of his family and friends suffering because of his failure. It whispered that he was just a simple mechanic who had no business trying to solve problems that had defeated entire civilizations. But Taeho had an advantage that the aliens had never possessed. He was not trying to use advanced technology to fight the curse. He was using basic mechanical principles that the curse could not easily corrupt. His simple tools and straightforward approach confused the curse, which had learned to defend against sophisticated attacks. Hour after hour, he worked rewiring circuits and modifying power systems. The curse sent stronger and stronger waves of mental attacks trying to break his concentration, but Taeho had spent years working on dangerous machinery in difficult conditions. He was used to staying focused even when everything around him was trying to distract him. Doc and the other aliens tried to help, but their advanced knowledge actually worked against them. Every time they suggested a more sophisticated approach, the curse would immediately adapt to counter it. Taeho had to work mostly alone, using his human intuition to guide him. As he worked, Taeho began to understand more about how the curse operated. It was not just a mindless force of destruction. It was more like a living thing that had learned and grown over the thousands of years. The curse had developed strategies and tactics for defending itself, becoming more intelligent with each failed attempt to stop it, but intelligence could also be a weakness. The curse had become so focused on defending against complex attacks that it was not prepared for Taeho's simple approach. It kept trying to corrupt his advanced tools and systems, not realizing that he was mostly using basic mechanical principles that did not depend on complex technology. The breakthrough came when Taeho realized that the curse was actually trying to escape from the ship. The energy wanted to spread outward into the galaxy, but it was trapped by the ship containment systems. If he could give it a way to flow outward through the propulsion systems, it would naturally follow that path. Instead of trying to break through the hull, he began modifying the ship engines to accept curse energy as fuel. The work required him to think in ways that violated everything he knew about physics. The curse energy did not behave like normal power. It existed partially outside normal space and time and followed rules that seemed to change depending on who was observing them. But Taeho's mechanical intuition helped him understand the patterns even when he could not explain them in scientific terms. He could feel how the energy wanted to flow, and he built channels to guide it in the right direction. His modifications were crude compared to the ship's advanced technology, but they worked because they were simple and direct. The aliens watched in growing amazement as their ship began to change for the first time in nearly 4,000 years. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over the vessel began to lift. The walls stopped pulsing with malevolent energy and the air became easier To breathe, Murdoch felt his mind becoming clearer as the curse released its grip on his thoughts. The endless loop of painful memories finally stopped, and he was able to think about something other than his people, destruction for the first time. Since the crash, he felt like himself again. The other two aliens were also recovering as the curse energy flowed away from the crew areas and into the propulsion systems. They began moving around the ship for the first time in millennia, stretching limbs that had been frozen in place and speaking aloud instead of just communicating through the mental link, but the modification came with a price. The curse energy flowing through the propulsion systems was preparing to launch the ship whether they were ready or not. The vessel had been buried in the cave system for so long that the rock had grown around it. Now it was literally tearing itself free from the planet. Crust alarms began sounding throughout the ship as ancient engines roared. To life with power they had never been designed to handle the curse energy was incredibly potent, far more powerful than the ship. Original fuel systems cracks appeared in the cave walls around them as the vessel strained against the rock that held it in place. Tejo realized they had only minutes before the ship would break free and potentially destroy the entire cave system. The tourist routes would collapse, killing anyone still inside. The launch would also cause massive earthquakes that could damage the colony settlements on the planet's surface. He quickly activated his emergency communicator, trying to reach Vexstar on the surface. All tours must evacuate immediately, he shouted into the device. Ancient ship preparing to launch. Cave system will collapse. Repeat, all personnel evacuate now. The response was filled with static, but he could hear Vexstar panicked voice, human, where are you? What happening? Scanner show massive energy surge underground. No time to explain, Tejo replied. Get everyone away from cave. Ship launching in minutes. The ship continued to rise, breaking through layers of rock that had held it prisoner for thousands of years. The sound was incredible, like thunder that went on forever. Mixed with the roar of engines was the groaning and cracking of stone as the cave system began to collapse. Tejo faced a choice that would change his life forever. He could try to escape back through the hull breach and return to his normal life as a mechanic. Or he could stay aboard and help the aliens navigate their escape from this world. The decision was made for him when the ship hull finally broke through the cave ceiling. Tejo sat down heavily on the bridge floor, trying to process everything Murdoch had shown him. The three aliens watched him with their glowing blue eyes, waiting to see how he would react to learning about the curse and the devourers. The weight of their suffering pressed down on him like a physical force. Murdoch began sharing more detailed memories, showing Tejo exactly what they had stolen from the devourers. The artifact was not just a weapon, it was something called a reality anchor, a device that could control the basic forces that held the universe together. The devourers used these anchors to tear holes in space, time, allowing them to consume entire dimensions. The artifact was hidden somewhere deep in the ship, protected by multiple layers of shielding and security systems, but over the thousands of years, the curse had grown so strong that the artifact had begun merging with the ship itself. Its power now flowed through every circuit and conduit, making the entire vessel a single massive cursed object. Tejo learned that the curse worked by feeding on negative emotions. The more fear and despair it caused, the stronger it became. The aliens had been perfect victims because their imprisonment gave them endless reasons to feel hopeless. The curse had grown fat on their suffering, becoming more powerful with each passing year. But the curse was not content to stay contained within the ship. It was slowly spreading outward through the rock and soil around the crash site. The strange readings Tejo's scanner had detected were actually early signs of curse contamination. The cave systems were beginning to change, becoming twisted versions of themselves already. The effects were starting to show. The bioluminescent fungi that provided natural lighting in the caves were growing larger and changing colors. The underground rivers were flowing in directions that defied gravity, and the floating spores that tourists loved to photograph were beginning to show signs of intelligence, organizing themselves into complex patterns. If the curse continued to spread, it would eventually reach the planet's surface. Within a few years, every living thing on the world would be affected. Plants would grow into impossible shapes that hurt to look at. Animals would develop behaviors that made no sense, and any intelligent beings would be driven slowly insane by visions of cosmic horror. Murdoch showed Tejo images of what had happened to other worlds touched by similar curses. Entire civilizations had torn themselves apart as the curse drove them to madness. Beautiful planets had been transformed into nightmare landscapes where the laws of physics no longer applied properly. The worst part was that there seemed to be no way to stop it. The aliens had tried everything they could think of over the centuries. They had attempted to destroy the artifact, but the curse protected itself by making any direct attack backfire. They had tried to contain the curse, but it always found ways to spread beyond any barriers they created. Every solution they had attempted had only made the situation worse. The curse seemed to learn from their efforts, becoming more clever and more dangerous with each failed attempt to stop. It was like fighting an enemy that could read their minds and predict their every move, but there was an even more terrifying possibility that Mordok had not yet shared. The Devourers who had originally owned the artifact might still be searching for it. These beings existed partially outside normal space and time, which meant they could potentially track the artifact across vast distances and eons. If the Devourers found the crashed ship, they would not just reclaim their weapon, they would completely erase this entire star system from existence, making it so that it had never existed in the first place. Everyone who had ever lived here would be forgotten, as if they had never been born. Mordok explained that the Devourers did this not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Their reality-consuming abilities required them to maintain perfect control over their artifacts. Any artifact that had been stolen or corrupted had to be cleansed by erasing everything it had ever touched. The alien captain shared images of star systems that had been erased by the Devourers, empty regions of space where nothing existed, not even the memory of what had once been there. The universe itself forgot that those places had ever contained life. Teho realized that his discovery of the ship might have already doomed everyone. The act of finding the artifact could have sent out some kind of signal that the Devourers could detect. Even now they might be traveling toward this star system, preparing to erase it completely, as if reading his thoughts. Mordok confirmed his worst fears. The ship systems had indeed sent out an automatic distress signal when Teho had accidentally activated them. The signal was designed to call for help from other survivors of the Great War, but it could also potentially attract the attention of the Devourers. The signal had been transmitted using technology that operated outside normal space-time, which meant it had already reached its destination regardless of distance. The message was now spreading throughout the galaxy and beyond, announcing the location of the stolen artifact to anyone who knew how to detect it. Mordok estimated that if the Devourers received the signal, they would arrive within days or weeks. Their ships could travel through dimensions that bypassed normal space, allowing them to cover vast distances almost instantly. Once they arrived, they would waste no time in erasing the entire star system. The three aliens had accepted their fate long ago. They had known that eventually their hiding place would be discovered and their stolen artifact would be reclaimed. They had made peace with the idea that their sacrifice would be forgotten along with everything else the Devourers erased. But now an innocent human had stumbled into their nightmare. Teho had not chosen to steal the artifact or fight in the Great War against the Devourers. He had simply been doing his job, checking safety systems in tourist caves. Yet now he was caught up in events that could destroy his entire species. Mordok shared one final piece of information that filled Teho with both hope and terror. The curse that had tormented them for so long was not just a source of suffering, it was also a source of incredible power. The same energy that had driven them insane had also kept them alive far beyond their natural lifespan. If someone could find a way to control the curse instead of being controlled by it, they might be able to use its power for good. The reality warping abilities that made the curse so dangerous could potentially be turned into tools for creation instead of destruction, but attempting to control the curse was incredibly dangerous. Anyone who tried and failed would become another victim, adding their suffering to the curse power. Every previous attempt had ended in madness or death. The curse seemed almost intelligent in how it defended itself from those who tried to master it. As Mordok finished sharing his story, the ship around them began to shake and groan. The curse was responding to the presence of a new potential victim. It was already trying to get inside Teho's mind, filling his thoughts with images of failure and despair. Teho could feel the curse pressing against his consciousness like a living thing trying to find ways to break through his mental defenses. He saw flashes of his worst memories magnified and distorted to cause maximum pain. The curse was learning about him, preparing to craft personalized torments, but something strange happened. Instead of being overwhelmed by the curse, Taeho found himself analyzing it like he would any other broken machine. His mechanical training kicked in and he began to see patterns in the chaos. The curse might be powerful and ancient, but it still followed certain rules for the first time in nearly 4,000 years. Mordok felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. Taeho moved through the ship corridors like a man in a dream. The walls around him were covered in carvings that seemed to move and change in his flashlight beam. The metal felt warm under his touch, almost like living skin. When he pressed his ear against the wall, he could hear a faint humming sound like the ship was breathing. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, but the ceiling was lower than human ships, making Taeho duck his head as he walked. Strange pipes and cables ran along the walls, glowing with soft blue light. Some of the cables looked like metal, while others appeared to be made of something organic like thick vines or roots. His scanner kept beeping, showing him the way deeper into the ship. The energy readings were getting stronger with each step he took. The air was getting thicker too, making it harder to breathe, but also filling him with a strange energy that made his skin tingle. After walking for 20 minutes, Taeho found himself in a room filled with machines unlike anything he had ever seen. The equipment combined metal and what looked like living tissue in ways that should have been impossible. Screens made of some crystalline material showed symbols and patterns that shifted and changed as he watched them. Some of the machines were clearly propulsion systems, but they worked on principles he could not understand. Instead of burning fuel or using fusion reactors, these engines seemed to draw power from space itself. The energy flowed through organic conduits that pulsed like blood vessels. Other machines looked like weapons, but again, they were far beyond anything in human technology. These weapons did not fire bullets or energy beams. Instead, they seemed designed to manipulate reality itself, warping space and time around their targets. Taeho spent an hour examining the alien technology, trying to understand how it worked. His mechanical training helped him recognize some basic principles, but most of the ship systems operated on science that humans had not yet discovered. The deeper he went into the ship, the more active the systems became. Lights flickered on as he passed, and machines began humming with power. It was as if the ship was waking up after a long sleep, responding to his presence. Finally, he reached what had to be the bridge of the ship. The room was circular, with 3 large chairs arranged around a central control console. Each chair was designed for beings much taller than humans, with 4 armrests instead of 2. The chairs themselves seemed to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that matched the ship overall design. Sitting in the 3 chairs were the ship former crew. Taeho's heart almost stopped when he saw them. The 3 aliens were tall and thin, with elongated skulls and pale silver skin. Their forearms hung limply at their sides and their eyes were closed, but they looked perfectly preserved, as if they had just fallen asleep moments ago. Strange symbols covered their foreheads and arms like tattoos, but these markings glowed faintly with the same blue light that ran through the ship systems. Their clothes had long since rotted away, but their bodies showed no signs of decay. As Taeho approached the central chair, his foot accidentally kicked a piece of debris that rolled across the floor and bumped into the control console. The moment the debris touched the console, the entire ship shuddered to life. Lights blazed on throughout the bridge, and the humming sound grew louder. The symbols on the walls began glowing brighter, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. The 3 preserved aliens suddenly opened their eyes, which blazed with unnatural blue light. Taeho stumbled backward in shock as the alien in the central chair slowly turned its head to look at him. When their eyes met, he felt a strange sensation in his mind, like someone was gently pushing their way into his thoughts. The sensation was not painful, but it was deeply unsettling. The alien presence in his mind felt ancient and tired, but also desperate. The creature was trying to communicate with him, but not through words. Instead, it was sharing images and emotions directly into his brain. Taeho saw flashes of memory that belonged to the alien, a great war that destroyed entire star systems. Ships fleeing through space carrying the last survivors of dying civilizations, a terrible enemy that consumed everything in its path, leaving nothing but empty void. Behind the alien captain, whose name appeared in Teho's mind as Mordok began to tell his story through these shared images, his people had been part of a great alliance of civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds. They had been peaceful traders and explorers who believed in sharing knowledge and helping younger species develop, but then the Devourers came. The Devourers were not just conquerors, they were something far worse. They did not simply destroy civilizations, they erased them completely from existence, consuming not just their bodies and cities, but their very history and culture. Anyone touched by the Devourers was forgotten, as if they had never existed at all. Mordok. People had fought against the Devourers for centuries using every weapon and technology they possessed, but nothing could stop the advancing darkness. The Devourers consumed world after world, leaving behind empty space where entire solar systems had once existed. In desperation, the surviving civilizations had banded together for one final attempt to stop the Devourers. They discovered that their enemies used ancient artifacts to power their reality-consuming abilities. If they could steal one of these artifacts, they might be able to turn the Devourers' own weapons against them. Mordok's ship had been chosen for this impossible mission. They had managed to infiltrate a Devourer stronghold and steal one of the artifacts, but the theft had marked them for complete destruction. The Devourers pursued them across the galaxy, determined to reclaim their weapon and eliminate any trace of the theft. The artifact they had stolen was more powerful than they had imagined, but it was also cursed. Anyone who possessed it would be tormented by visions of destruction and death. The curse would spread to anyone who came near the artifact, turning allies into enemies and hope into despair. When the Devourers finally cornered Mordok's ship above this planet, the crew had made a desperate decision. Rather than let the artifact fall back into enemy hands, they had crashed their ship into the cave system and activated a stasis field. The field would preserve them until it was safe to continue their mission, but something had gone wrong. The stasis field had indeed preserved their bodies, but their minds had remained conscious for every moment of the past 3,718 years. They had been trapped in their own bodies, unable to move or speak, but fully aware of the passage of time. The curse from the stolen artifact had made their imprisonment even worse. They had been forced to relive their worst memories over and over again, watching their civilization die again and again in endless loops. They had felt every moment of pain and loss as if it was happening for the first time. For nearly 4,000 years, they had waited and suffered, hoping that someday someone would find them and break the curse that bound them to this living nightmare. They had watched their bodies decay and regenerate countless times, their flesh rotting away, only to reform again as the stasis field repaired the damage. Now, finally, someone had found them, but Mordok was not sure if this human could help them. The curse was incredibly powerful, and it had grown stronger over the millennia. It spread through the ship systems and was beginning to affect the cave system around them. If the curse was not stopped soon, it would reach the surface of the planet and begin affecting all life in the star system. The Taurus caves that Teho had come to inspect were already showing signs of corruption. The strange readings on his scanner had been the first warning signs. Mordok shared one final terrifying image with Teho. The Devourers might still be searching for the stolen artifact. Even after all these years, they could potentially track it across space and time. If they found it, they would not only reclaim their weapon, but would likely destroy the entire star system. To ensure no trace remained as the mental connection faded, Teho found himself standing alone on the bridge with 3 tortured aliens who had been suffering for longer than human civilization had existed. He was just a mechanic who had come to check some safety systems. Now he was face to face with a curse that could destroy worlds and enemies that could erase entire civilizations from existence. Teho stepped out of the small transport ship and looked around at the strange new world. The ground under his feet was not like Earth at all. It was purple and red rocks everywhere, with huge crystal towers reaching up to the sky like giant fingers. The air smelled different too, like metal and flowers mixed together. 2 suns hung in the sky, making everything glow with golden light. He wiped his dirty hands on his work clothes and picked up his heavy tool bag. Teho was the best mechanic in all the space colonies. Everyone knew his name when machines broke down. People called him from planets far away just to fix their broken equipment. Today he had a new job that seemed easy enough. The Galactic Tourism Board wanted him to check the safety systems in some alien caves. A tall blue alien walked toward him. The creature had 4 arms and big yellow eyes. Its skin looked like smooth blue metal. The alien wore a silver uniform with many badges on it. This was Vextar, the local tour guide who would show him around the caves. "Hello, human mechanic," the alien said in broken English. "I am very happy you come here. These caves very beautiful, very safe for tourists, we think, but we need expert to check all systems, make sure nothing." Breaktaho nodded and followed Vextar toward a large opening in the rocky cliff. The entrance to the caves was bigger than a house with smooth edges that looked like someone had carved them by hand. Strange blue lights glowed from inside, casting weird shadows on the purple rocks around the opening inside the caves. Teho felt like he was walking through a dream world. The walls were covered with glowing fungus that made soft blue and green light. Crystals grew from the ceiling like icicles. But these crystals hummed with energy and changed colors as he walked past them. The air was warm and moist, making his clothes stick to his skin. "Look here, human," the guide said, pointing to metal railings along the walking path. "These keep tourists safe from falling. We put lights everywhere so people can see. We have emergency exits every 100 meters, just like safety rules say." Teho pulled out his scanner and began checking the electrical systems. The device beeped and showed green lights, meaning everything was working fine. The emergency lighting worked. The safety barriers were strong. The air circulation systems moved fresh air through all the tunnels. He made notes on his tablet as they walked deeper into the cave system. The caves went on for miles, with rooms bigger than football stadiums. Underground rivers flowed through some chambers, making soft gurgling sounds that echoed off the walls. In one room, thousands of tiny floating spores drifted through the air like living snow. Each spore glowed with its own light, making the whole room look like the inside of a star. "Very pretty, yes," the guide said. "See how spores dance in air. Current from underground river makes them move like this. Tourists love to take pictures here. We put special platform there for best view." They walked for 2 hours, checking every system and every safety feature. Everything seemed perfect until they reached the deepest part of the cave tour route. Teho was checking the backup power system when his scanner started making strange noises. The device was beeping rapidly and flashing red lights. "What wrong with machine?" Vextar asked nervously. "Is problem with safety systems?" Teho frowned and tapped the scanner. It was detecting metal and energy signatures that should not be there. The readings were very strong, much stronger than the small electrical systems in the caves. The scanner was pointing toward a wall that looked solid, but the reading said there was something big behind it. "There might be old mining equipment back there," Teho said. "I should check to make sure it will not interfere with the tourist systems." The guide shook his head rapidly. No human, there no mining here. These caves natural formation, very old, very untouched. No one ever mined here." But Teho was already walking toward the wall, following the scanner readings. He found a crack in the rock face that was just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The crack was hidden behind some hanging crystals, so no one would notice it unless they were looking carefully. "I need to check this," the mechanic said. "The energy readings are too strong to ignore. If there is old equipment back there, it might be dangerous." "Please, human, do not go," Vextar said nervously. "Cave maps show nothing there. Maybe scanner broken. Maybe reading interference from crystal." Teho ignored the guide and squeezed through the narrow opening. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness as he pushed past loose rocks and hanging roots. On the other side of the crack, he found himself in a chamber so huge his light could not reach the far walls. The air here was different, thicker and warmer, with a strange metallic taste. He walked forward slowly, letting his scanner guide him. The device was going crazy now, beeping so fast it sounded like one long alarm. The readings showed massive amounts of metal and unknown energy types somewhere ahead in the darkness. His boots echoed on the rocky floor as he walked deeper into the hidden chamber. Then his flashlight beam hit something that made him stop and stare. Rising from the chamber floor like a metal mountain was the hull of a massive starship. The vessel was partly buried in ancient sediment and rocks, but Teho could see it was enormous, much bigger than any ship he had ever worked on. The hull was covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in his flashlight beam. The ship was unlike anything in the known galaxy instead of the straight lines and sharp angles of human ships. This vessel had smooth flowing curves that looked almost alive. The metal itself seemed to pulse with a faint inner light like a heartbeat. Parts of the hull were transparent, showing glimpses of corridors and rooms. Tejo walked around the ship, his scanner recording everything. The reading showed the vessel was incredibly old, older than human space travel, older than most known civilizations. But somehow parts of it were still active. His scanner detected power flowing through the ship systems that should have died long ago. Near what looked like the ship bow, he found several holes in the hull where the metal had been twisted and torn. These breaches were big enough to climb through the edges of. The holes were smooth and melted, showing that whatever had damaged the ship had used incredible heat. Against his better judgment, Tejo climbed through one of the holes into the ship interior. His flashlight revealed corridors covered in the same glowing symbols he had seen outside. The walls seemed to be made of metal and some kind of organic material grown together. The air inside was even thicker, carrying scents of ozone and something sweet that he could not identify. As he explored deeper into the ancient vessel, Tejo began to realize he had found something that would change everything. This was not just an old ship. This was proof that advanced civilizations had been traveling between stars thousands of years before humans ever left Earth, and somehow this ship had ended up hidden in a cave on a planet at the edge of known space. His communicator crackled with static as Vexstar voice came through. Human, where are you? Scanner shows you very deep in unauthorized area. Please return to tour route now. Tahoe looked around at the alien technology surrounding him and made a decision that would change his life forever. He turned off his communicator and continued deeper into the mysterious ship,